Hey, I'm Paul Russell, and this is the Musical Mandala. And today we are going to look and listen into the A minor triad, as we're accustomed to playing it in open position on a guitar. So a triad has basically three components. And the first of these, and most basic of these components, is the root, in this case, A. So there's our root that's also in the bass on the open A string. Where else does A show up? The second fret of the G string, right? So there's our roots. After the root, the most basic or fundamental tone in relation with the root is the fifth. And in A, that's an E. So there's two expressions of E in this voicing. One is on the second fret of the D string, the other, the open E string. So now we have two roots and two fifths. A very clean, wide open sound, right? And kind of neutral. And depending on the expectation in our own brain, we might hear, or we might have been hearing. In either case, polarity hasn't been established yet, whether this is an A major chord or an A minor chord. But now let's establish that. And we'll do it through this minor third, which is a C. And it's expressed on the first fret of the B string. And so the anatomy, or the voicing, of this particular chord played on the guitar is root, fifth, root, third, fifth. A, E, A, C, E. Note that this A, C, E, there's a close position triad. Oh, so pretty. Great, A minor. So a triad has three tones in it, the root, the fifth, and the third. And a key has 7 tones in it, right? And so the chord we're playing has 3 of those 7 tones, which means that behind those 3 tones, there are 4 tones hiding. I like to say that there are 4 tones hiding behind the curtain of every triad. And now we're gonna have them kind of peek from behind that curtain. According to the principle, tether every tone to the triad. So we'll just do that, and it'll become more clear as we do. So let's actually start with the minor sixth, which is located a half step above the fifth, or E. So here's A, E, and E, a half step up to F, E. So I'm just going to vamp on an A minor chord, and every now and again I'm going to have that minor sixth peek out from behind the curtain. And because there are 2 fifths here, this high E can also be raised up a half step to F. So I could go. And when I'm playing with this high E, I'm leaving out the lower E. Then I could play sometimes with the lower one. Even have them kind of answer each other. And if you lift them both up, well, you get an F chord. But more on that later. So we have three tones, the triad, the root, the fifth, the third. And there are 7 tones in the key. So there's a difference of 4, right? So there's a root, third, fifth. And then behind, there are 4 tones. And we just looked at the 6th, peeking out from behind the 5th. The reason I picked the 6th is that it's very, very close to the 5th. And the tone, when we tether every tone to the triad, the tone of the triad to which we will tether one of the non-chord tones is the one that's closest to it. And if it's equidistant from 2 tones, like if it's the same distance from the root and the third, for example, it's going to go to the element of the chord that has the most weight. And the root has the most weight because that's our foundation. After which is the 5th, and finally the third. The third is the least weighty of the 3 elements of the triad. Anyway, let's keep exploring. So, A minor. Next, let's look at the 4th. The 4th is going to be a whole step above the 3rd in a minor key. Our 3rd is here, C, and a whole step above C is D, here played on the 3rd fret of the B string. So now I'll... Now before, how we dialogued between like this upper 5th to the 6th. I'm going to introduce solfege here. Sole, sole, sol, sole, sole, sol, me, do. Now I can answer between, or like make a conversation between the 3 going to 4 and back to 3, and 5 going to 6 and back to 5. Or me, sole, sol. For example, here we go. So our palette of possibilities is expanding. So here's the root, here's the 3rd, here's the 5th. We've played the 6th, a half step above the 5th, the 4th, a whole step above the 3rd. Now let's play the 2nd and the 7th, both relative to our root. The 7th is going to be a whole step below it, the 2nd, a whole step above the root. So as before, our roots are expressed here in the bass and here in the middle. Here's an A, here's an A. And let's do the 7th first. So here's A, and a whole step below A is open G. So I can just be like... And also I can play G here on the 3rd fret of the E string. So I could go boom, ba ba boom, ba. As I'm doing this, I'm listening, right? I'm in a state of listening. And the outcome we want in all music, as far as I can feel at this point, is you want your intention, that is what you think, the direction that you send the music in, your voice, your fingers, and your instrument are all going to be connected. So I can go like bum, bum, ba bum, 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 ba ya ya, bum, 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 ba bum, ba da da ya, da ya, da ba ba da da, bum, bum. Because really, the fundamental instrument that you're playing is your mind. You know, expressed, well, heart, fingers, instrument. So what's left? The 2nd. The 2nd is B. And here's A, open A. A whole step above A is B. Now this B, you can either go up 2 frets on the G string from A to B, or you can play the open B string. Doing that's a little trickier because you need to silence the root when you go to the second, and silence the second when you go back to the root, or else you get this kind of gnarly dissonance. Yeah, let's play around with that. A, B, A, B, A, A, B, A. Now let's include G as well, so I could go above the root to the second and below the root to the seventh and come back home. Like. Super fun. Okay, so now we have all 7 tones, right? We played the triad, and we played the 4 tones behind the curtain of every triad. In each one of those 4 tones, we have tethered to one of the tones of the triad. Tether every tone to the triad. And the tone of the triad to which each tone behind the curtain was tethered is the one that is closest, right? The 6th is only a half step from the 5th. And the 6th is like, what? A third from the root. So we're definitely going back to the 5th. But in the case of re, or the second, A, B, excuse me, well, that one's really interesting because it's actually closer to the 3rd, isn't it? It's a half step between the 2nd and 3rd in a minor key, but a whole step between the root. But the draw on the stability of the root is so powerful that it's more likely to be pulled back to the root. But there's an ambiguity. So really, it could go either way. It's just, maybe takes a little more momentum to take the 2nd up to the 3rd. But let's try it out. Like. Yeah, as it turns out, that's cool. You can actually use that tone in a second way, which is as a passing tone between 2 chord tones, which we'll talk about later. But in this one, this particular session, the idea that I want you to internalize and then be able to apply through playing on your instrument is find your anatomy, get familiar with the anatomy of a chord, familiarize yourself with the 4 tones behind the curtain. There are 4 tones hiding behind the curtain of every chord, right? And then tether each one of those tones to the triad, and then play around with all 7 of them. For example. This way, your chord becomes less of a static form that's on a guitar and more like a moving, like dancing structure with the implicit tones behind it that really give meaning to what's kind of forward and explicit. And yeah, play around with that. It's a ton of wide open possibilities within the context of what we thought was just a single chord. But it's so much more.